So today I want to talk about 5 things that I see people doing with their horses that they shouldn't be doing, either because it's dangerous or it'll become dangerous, or just the fact that there's an easier, better way of doing it. So the first one I want to talk about is, I see this quite a bit, is where the horse will step into the person's personal space, and that person, because the horse is stepping towards them, they'll intentionally or unintentionally take a step back, okay? And when you do that, even though you might not be aware that you're doing that, your horse noticed it. Horses are very perceptive. Even if it was a very, small step backwards, your horse noticed it. Horses are the most perceptive domesticated animal. So even if you aren't aware of what your body was doing, your horse noticed it. And you're telling them that you're not the leader, that they're able to move your feet. Because if you watch horses out in the wild or even out in the pasture, if you notice like the more dominant horses, that's how they assert their dominance, is they go around and move the other horses around and move them out of their space. So if you don't correct that, especially if you're not aware of what your body's doing by, taking a step back, yielding away from that horse, and you don't correct that, that can become dangerous. That horse can become more pushy, dominant. They'll start stepping on you, pushing on you, leaning on you, maybe even running you over. So you need to correct that right away. So if your horse takes even one step towards you, you need to immediately correct them by having them yield away from you. So you're going to have them take a step or two away from you. And you need to do that every time, not sometimes. Because I seen this the other day where somebody was saddling their horse, and the horse ended up taking just a little side step towards them. And whether that person realized that the horse did it or they just chose to ignore it, the next day I watched again, they were saddling him up, and that horse ended up taking 2 steps and started pushing on him. So if you don't correct it and you don't establish clear boundaries and teach that horse to respect your personal space, that horse is going to become more pushy, more dominant. So the next thing I want to talk about is with the halter. And I especially see this with new horse owners. They just don't know how to put that halter on. They're making it more difficult than it has to be. And they're not tying the halter correctly either. So, for example, what I see quite a bit with new horse owners is they'll have the halter, and what they'll do is they'll grab the nose piece like this, and they'll push that nose on like that, and then they're trying to get the tail of the rope over there like that, and then sometimes that horse ends up raising his head up, and they're just having a difficult time. So let me show you an easier way of putting that halter on, and I'll show you how to correctly tie that halter. So when you're putting the halter on, you want to teach your horse to lower his head. Now you're going to take the halter, put the tail of the rope in your right hand, and you're going to grab the side of the nose piece with your left hand. You're going to scoop up the nose, and now you break the tail over, and now you can tie it. So let me show you how you tie the halter. So he's had Charlie come over here. Good. So to tie it correctly, you're going to take the end of the tail, put it through the loop, make sure it's all lined up beneath the chin. And from here, you're going to go towards the tail and behind. So I'm going to come up from behind. I'm going to create this hole, and I'm going to take the tail of the rope, bring it back through the hole and towards the horse's tail. So the end result should be that the tail of the rope should be towards the tail of the horse, okay? And if you have extra tail, you can snug it behind the halter like that. That way it's not always in the horse's vision. That's just what I like to do. So the third thing I want to talk about real quick is just how you hold the lead rope. So this is something I actually did when I got back into horses. How I would hold the slack of the lead rope is, I would just double it up like that, make loops. And what happens, you run the risk of getting your hand caught in that rope. So if your horse was to run off and that rope slipped through your hand, well, if you don't have time to let it go, see what happens? You get caught on your hand, okay? So to safely hold that lead rope, you want to double it up, just like that. So if the horse was to pull that rope out of your hand, you're just going to lose the rope. You're not going to run the risk of hurting your hand. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is horses that walk off as soon as you mount. They don't want to stand still and wait for you. So I'll demonstrate that with Charlie. So what I'll see is somebody, gets halfway on, or they just sit down in that saddle and that horse is already walking off. And that tells me is, if that horse is, not waiting for the rider, what else is that horse going to ignore? What else is that horse going to choose to do without the rider telling them to? So it's a big, big lack of respect. So with a horse that doesn't want to wait for me, when I go to get on, what I would do is I would stop them, and then I would back them up to wherever they were supposed to be, and then drop the rein. If they continually kept trying to walk off, well, then I would use the concept to make the right thing easy, the wrong thing hard. So I'd, basically be telling the horse, like, okay, I gave you a chance. So if you don't want to stand still, you want to move, let's move. So then I would just, pick an exercise, just move around, hustle their feet, do that for a few seconds, however long it takes, and then stop, drop the rein, and then, see if the horse has changed his mind about standing still. If not, pick up that rein, move them around, hustle their feet a little bit, stop, drop their rein again, and see if they change their mind. Usually it only takes 2 or 3 times where that horse will change his mind. You'll be thinking like, yeah, it's probably a better idea just to stand still. It's a lot easier just to stand still and wait. So that's how you teach a horse to stand still and wait for your signal to walk off. So the next one I want to talk about, I see this a lot with new riders, is that they'll hold their breath right before they ask the horse to do something. So I'll see a rider, they'll go to hold their breath as they ask the horse to trot or to stop, it doesn't matter. They just, a lot of times don't even realize that they're doing it. They'll hold their breath. And to the horse, when you hold your breath, you're telling the horse that you're concerned. You're telling the horse that there's something to be worried about. And that can make a horse anxious. That can make a horse concerned. And because you held your breath, that causes your body to become a little bit rigid, and your horse can feel that. To help with that, what you can do is teach yourself that whenever you're about to ask your horse to do something different, whether it's to trot or to stop or to slow down, whatever it is, teach yourself to take a deep breath and exhale. Every time you ask your horse to do something different, and then ask, okay? So that will help. So those are just a few things that I see people doing that they shouldn't be doing, either because it's dangerous or it can become dangerous, or there's just easier, better way of doing it. So I hope those help.